today is part one of a two-part series, okay? And I might seem a little long-winded here, but there is kind of a method to this madness. Today is going to be all about kind of learning the basics of annuities, understanding the language, and then next week when we get together, we're going to take it the next step, and we're going to start to position these things into your practice and your client's portfolio, so you can really get a good idea of what the opportunity is for you and your folks. But we've got to understand, we got to speak the same language first. So that's kind of what the purpose of today is. We're going to cover a lot of information today. First, I want to introduce myself and my company to you guys so you know who we are. And then I want to discuss the opportunity that Iscential has provided to us all as a result of this partnership and how it can benefit your practice. And lastly, we'll roll up our sleeves and we'll start to unwrap the mystery that is these annuities that we're working with here. But by the time we finish up today, you'll have a very solid understanding of what annuities are and how they work. And then also, we want to make sure we take time to answer your questions. So there should be a chat box on your screen there. Type in your questions as we go, and then we'll circle back at the end and get them all answered for you. My name's Chris Fear. I'm the Vice President of Distribution here at Unkefer Associates. I've been with the company since 2009 and have worn a few different hats while I've been here. I first got into the insurance industry in 2003, where I worked in the field as a producer for a captive agency. And after having success as a producer, I gained experience building an agency of my own, and I recruited and developed agents to work within my system. And in 2008, I moved into the IMO space, where I developed and supported independent producers from a wholesaling position. And in 2018, I switched gears, working less with direct producers to focus more on our wholesale partners, like the folks over at Iscential. So now I help our partners build out their own infrastructure in order to support their own agents and establish their own annuity and life distribution. So who is Unkefer? In short, Unkefer is going to be Iscential's annuity and life back office partner. So we're here to help you expand your practice to include annuity and life solutions for your clients. We are an IMO, and we're focused predominantly on annuities, but we do life insurance business as well. We're just not so good at it. So you probably want to talk to the Iscential folks for that. But we're based out of Phoenix, Arizona. And as you may or may not know, we don't participate in daylight savings time, something I always try to bring up with folks that we meet. So half the year I might be 1 or 2 hours behind you, and the other half of the year I might be 1 or 2 hours. I don't know. It's really confusing. One of these days I'll figure it out. I've been here 15 years. I still get it all messed up. But we are part of the AmeriLife group, and we were purchased in 2012. And for the most part, we operate pretty autonomously. We were founded in 1994 by William Andrew Unkefer, who is a well-respected and influential figure in the IMO space. And even though he's retired from our firm, his name still carries a significant degree of weight and respect in the industry. In 1994, when Andy started the company, our business model was unique for the time. Our competitors were focused on recruiting agents, and we were instead recruiting them. So partnering with IMOs and other large retail operations, we were able to help them streamline their processes and consolidate all of our production, which benefited us all. So today we work with over 60 IMO partners and agencies, and we have a robust direct producer channel as well, where we service independent agents from all over the country. In 2022, we did just over $1.3 billion of annuity and life premium. And this year we're on pace to break $1.5 billion. We're hoping to try to get to 1.6. And certainly our partnerships with Iscential are very much a big part of that, as well as all the agents and that work with Iscential today. So we appreciate you guys. We appreciate you being here. All right, so what does all this mean for you? What's the opportunity? I like to think of it as experience plus support and plus tools is what leads to success, right? So maybe you need to throw in a little elbow grease too, but because effort can go a long way. But our goal is to provide the resources and experience which will help make your learning curve as quick and painless as possible. We have an entire staff here of experienced annuity and life professionals, and they're available to you. And many of them hold current licenses and have experience in the field as former producers themselves. We offer administrative services. How many of you folks get bogged down with the admin stuff that's preventing you from being in front of your clients, where we all know that's where you're making your money, right? So our licensing coordinators will help you manage the licensing process. Our agent services coordinators will help you navigate the new business process. They'll provide status updates, help you with outstanding requirements, and escalate hangups and exceptions. One of the biggest advantages of working with us is that you have access to our agent support team. And our agent support team members can provide you with case consultation, presentation assistance, product recommendations, quotes, illustrations, and all other sort of point of sales materials. So these are the things that help you develop your own process, which will ultimately lead to your success. Our agent support team is sensitive to the different selling styles our diverse group of producers utilize. So we're very flexible with our coaching methods in order to meet your needs. Resources. So one of the other things that Andy, our founder, was most recognized for was his innovation. And that's a torch we made sure to pick up and run with throughout the years, even after his retirement. We provide tangible resources that can make a difference. Things like product and conceptual training, quoting, illustrations, tools, in-depth product and carrier comparisons, marketing programs, and all sorts of other innovative support technology. And last but certainly not least, the Iscential and Unkefer partnership gives you access to thousands of products with over 55 different leading carriers, actually closer to 60 now. And many of those are limited distribution or entirely exclusive to our distribution channel. So these are the things that can fast track someone completely new to the annuity world. If you want to expand the value you bring to your clients by including these products as part of your solutions, we can help you. You don't need to figure this out on your own. We've already done all that. So we're here to help you hit the ground running. All right, so let's get into annuities here. This is going to be the 10,000-foot view, again, in order to establish the basics on which we can build your expertise. So today we're going to cover things like what is an annuity, what are the pillars and components of annuities, what are the different types of annuities, a big one is how does index crediting work, and then lastly, what are the income options? We got to talk about income when we talk about annuities. All right, so I'd be remiss if I didn't include the obligatory fun facts and historical knickknacks, that you have to do when you give a presentation. So here they are, but some of these are pretty interesting, actually. So the word annuity is derived from the Latin word annua, which refers to annual stipends. That's why we always have to correlate some sort of income function with annuities. The Roman Empire was credited with creating the first actuarial life table, and that's because they used annuities to pay soldiers for their military service. Pretty cool. And I really like this one. Benjamin Franklin willed his annuities to the cities of Boston and Philadelphia, and after his death, both of those annuities continued to pay out well into the 1990s. And in fact, they would have continued to pay out even longer than that, but the distributions were starting to get so small that the cities decided to just go ahead and take the lump sum and be done with it. All right, so an annuity is different than a lot of other financial instruments in the sense that it's not actually an investment. So be really careful with the language that you use when you're talking about annuities. It's not an investment. It's actually a contract, okay? And a contract is established between the insurance company and the insured party. And what it does is it creates a financial account that will have benefits and growth opportunity. And there's a couple things that it has to have. There's these qualities that it has to have because it's a contract. So number one is guarantees, okay? A contract has to have some sort of guarantee in it. So types of guarantees we'll see inside an annuity contract is minimum growth rates. So they'll guarantee what your minimum growth is going to be over the course of the contract. And they'll also guarantee things like the minimum and maximum rates, which ultimately is your earning potential. So we're going to cap off what's the floor is for you, and we're going to define what the worst case scenario is for you over the life of the contract. Second thing that you need to have inside a contract is terms and conditions, right? So terms and conditions in annuity are going to be things like a surrender period. How long do we have to be in the contract for? Liquidity provisions. How and when can I get the money inside the contract? What are the possible fees and charges associated with the contract? And very importantly, incontestability. Because the death proceeds are paid out as a result of a contract, then it is not subject to probate. Okay, big piece of why we see annuities in the estate planning portfolios. And one feature that is unique to annuities in comparison to other financial products is that with annuities, the insurance company promises to pay income on a regular basis for a period of time. Folks, that's what we call annuitization. And I'm going to go into more detail about what that actually means, but basically it turns your asset into an income stream. So you're always going to have some sort of options available to you inside the annuity contract in order to annuitize it. What are the pillars of annuities? What makes an annuity a unique and desirable financial vehicle for your clients? Okay, guarantees, right? We talked about that annuities are contracts and they're not investments. And because they're not investments, they offer safety, right? Investment implies the possibility of risk, the risk of loss, right? We don't have the risk of loss in a contract. We have guarantees. So we have safety. Annuity contract values will never suffer loss due to market volatility, okay? Growth opportunity. Annuities have a unique and innovative crediting strategy which can provide return, or that can actually return double digits. So today's annuities are not the same of old, which can't keep up with other financial instruments. How about tax deferral? Tax deferral gives you the ability to earn compound interest on funds you otherwise would have given to Uncle Sam. So with annuities, you're going to pay taxes on the funds you use as you use them. Income. Annuities have built-in income features which can provide flexible flexible options that include guaranteed income payments for you and your spouse's life. And incontestability, right? We talked about this a little bit. Why are they so often a vital part of comprehensive estate plans? Because they're not subject to probate. Once again, these are contracts with guarantees, and that includes the death benefit proceeds, which cannot be contested in probate court. All right, so if I were going to tell you about a new annuity, I may describe it as a 10-year deferred single premium equity index annuity. And I may also say something like it's an accumulation product or it's an income product. This description is listing the main components of an annuity that are generally the most considered when comparing one product to another. At the end of the day, they all do the same thing, but insurance carriers have latitude with different features, which is what can make one product better than another for different applications. So to establish the contract or to purchase the annuity, the policyholder funds it with premium. Okay, certain products are restricted to single premium, while others can allow for multiple flexible premium over the life of the contract. Term refers to the length of the surrender period on which the contract is built. At the end of the term, the policyholder will have the option of staying in the contract or surrendering the policy with no surrender charges. And that's because the surrender period has expired. And so you're fully liquid at that point. The carrier builds products and structures pricing based on how long they will have to invest the policyholder's premium in order to return interest on the guarantees. Okay, so you can see annuity terms as short as 1 or 2 years and as long as 15 years or even longer. Today, the most competitive products we work with are usually in the 7 to 10 year range. How about earnings? How an annuity earns interest is one of the factors which differentiates one annuity type from another. Some may offer declared fixed rates over a period of time, and others may track the performance of external markets. More info on that here soon. Liquidity. Excuse me. In general, most annuities are going to offer some sort of liquidity during the surrender period. That is, so be it penalty-free withdrawals, like every year you can get X amount with no penalty. You can get interest-only systematic payments. Of course, you have annuitization, and another one is living benefits. Right? Carriers have gotten creative with leveraging liquidity with surrender periods. So let's talk about those living benefits. Many annuity products will offer them by way of optional, paid for, or automatically included riders and waivers. So examples of these are going to be like income riders, death benefit riders, terminal illness waivers, and then nursing care waivers as well. All right, so there are two main types of annuities. Okay, we have fixed and we have variable. And contrary to what many people think, fixed index annuities or equity index annuities are considered fixed annuities. Okay. Other fixed annuities include a traditional fixed, which is probably what you're thinking of right now in your head, MYGAs, multi-year guaranteed annuities, and SPIAs, single premium immediate annuities. Variable annuities are not available through your affiliation with Iscential or Unkefer. We don't market them, and we will not be spending time covering them today. And let me rephrase that. Variable annuities are not offered through the Unkefer Iscential partnership. They may be available through Iscential, but not through Unkefer. But one thing you should know is that variable annuities are classified as a security. They're regulated by the SEC, and they require FINRA licensing to market. And that doesn't make variable annuities better or more competitive than fixed annuities, just different. All right, so traditional fixed annuities are what most people think of when they think of annuities. The insurance company will declare a stated interest rate at the time of policy issue. Okay, the insurance company will guarantee that rate for a specific period of time. With a traditional fix is typically 1 year. At the end of the interest rate period, the company will state a new interest rate, which is referred to as the new renewal rate. And that rate will be what the client will get for the subsequent policy year. Second type of fixed product is going to be a MYGA, a multi-year guaranteed annuity. And this is very much like a traditional fixed, except that it declares a guaranteed interest rate for multiple years rather than one single year and renews every year. And so the rate period in which that guarantee is generally coincides with the length of the surrender period. So, for example, you would have a 5-year, a rate that's guaranteed for 5 years, and it's on a 5-year surrender period product. Okay. The rate's guaranteed for that period, and at the end of the rate period, the insured will have the option to renew at a stated rate or surrender the policy penalty free. Okay, we're out of the surrender period at that point. You can walk with your money fully liquid and don't have to worry about any penalties. All right. So let's talk about fixed index annuities. Okay, fixed index annuities, once again, they are fixed annuities. They have the same components and benefits as traditional fixed annuities. They're also contracts. They also have guarantees. They also have terms and conditions. Okay. The only way that they're different from other fixed annuities is because of how they earn interest. Okay. They earn interest and provide benefits that are linked to external equity references or equity indices. Okay. So it's very important to note that when an individual buys an FIA, they own an insurance contract. They are not buying shares of any stock or index. So, crediting strategies associated with FIAs have come a really long way in recent years. The insurance carriers, producers, and individuals alike have recognized the unique opportunity FIAs offer. As such, a competitive landscape has presented us with innovative crediting strategies which can host a number of options. Common indices used for FIA crediting strategies includes domestic markets, things like the S&P 500, the Dow Jones, the NASDAQ. They can also track international indices such as the Euro Stock 50, the Hang Seng, or the Nikkei. Also, commodities are out there. A lot of people are looking at commodities these days just because of the market volatility we've been in the past couple of years. So you can use crediting strategies that track the price of gold, for example. And then lastly, and most commonly right now, we're seeing a whole lot of these multi-asset crediting strategies that utilize baskets that are oftentimes created from large financial institutions and banks, like JP Morgan and Morgan Stanley and PIMCO and all these other banks that are out there. They'll create a product that has some rules that move the funds between equities, bonds, and cash positions. They're really cool. I'm not going to get into too much detail on them today because they're pretty complicated, but that's something we could certainly revisit in the future if you guys want to learn more about those. All right, so common FIA crediting strategy. So the indices provide the movement based on the financial and economic landscape, among other factors, right? The crediting strategy is the method with which the insurance carrier can capture potential movement from the chosen index, okay? So common FIA crediting strategies include point-to-point. And a point-to-point is just the difference between point A and point B. And those points can be on a monthly basis, an annual basis, or even 2, 3, and as long as a 5-year basis. We also have monthly average and monthly sum, okay? Those are going to take, just like it says, the monthly average or the monthly sum, 12 data points over the course of the year. And then they oftentimes implement what we call an annual reset, which means we capture all that data over the course of the year, and then we apply the interest on an annual basis. Index gain with declared rate, oftentimes on a point-to-point chassis, usually a 1-year point-to-point. And these are pretty cool. A lot of folks like to use these in bear markets. Basically, all it states is if the index increases at any degree. So if the index that you're tracking has a year that returns 0.001%, your contract will be credited with whatever the declared rate is at the time. So they'll, that rate is declared at the onset of the contract. And then volatility control, daily risk control, also very typically on a point-to-point chassis. We see a lot of these volatility, daily risk control crediting strategies using those multiple baskets that I talked about in the last slide. Once again, not going to go into too much detail on those today.
Hey, Chris, your buddy Derek Campbell's got a question.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Chris, on the crediting strategies, how much flexibility does the client have, or does the carrier determine the crediting strategy?
Good question. So the carriers offer the crediting strategies, right? So us as the producer and the policyholders have no say over what is offered. They buy a product, that's what's offered. Now, what they can do, however, is they can decide how much they want to put into whatever crediting strategy is offered by the carrier. So they get to determine that at the time of application, and then at every policy anniversary, so every reset period for the crediting strategy, they can determine if they want to move more of an allocation out of it or into it and move between different crediting strategies. So it's something that can change on an annual basis.
So as the insurance advisor, is it my duty to offer to my client, after I talk with my client and find out what's the reason for the money, is it my responsibility to offer to the client the best carrier based upon that conversation?
Absolutely, yeah, and that's what we're going to help you do, right? So, when you find out what your client's objectives are, we'll talk to you about it. We'll figure out, what product's going to be best suited to meet those financial objectives. And then we'll also be able to advise you on which crediting strategies we think would be the best to utilize for that period. And actually, I'm looking at some tools. I was just at NAFA last week, and I was looking at some tools. One of the things that you'll notice is because of how complex these crediting strategies are getting, carriers are starting to put a lot more emphasis on educating folks on them. And a couple of the carriers out there have actually, Athene is one of them, Allianz is another. They've actually come up with an option for policyholders where you can just elect to have the carrier manage your allocations over the life of the contract. And what happens is those folks go, yep, we think that these are going to be the best performing strategies. We recommend that you use this allocation percentage between these different strategies, and they automatically renew it and manage that for you. It's actively managed by the carrier. Pretty cool. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that moving forward, actually.
Okay.
Hey,
Thanks,
Derek,
Chris.
it actually is a good point on two fronts, right? When Justin and I were kind of putting the platform together, and got the opportunity to meet Chris and what Unkefer does, there were two things that really, I know for me, sealed the deal. One would be, just like on the life side, we try to teach people, no matter where they're at, how to fish and how to effectively sell life insurance, right? That's what Unkefer is doing for you in annuities. Second is in contrast to the life platform, we wanted to have a set of top carriers, right? Because given the scenario, Chris may say, look, I know you love this carrier, but for what this client's trying to achieve and what they're comfortable with, this may be a better solution. That's why we went to that multi-carrier platform.
Okay. All right. Makes sense, Brad. Thanks.
Absolutely. Okay. Moving along. All right. So we talked about the indexes that we have available, right? Where the carriers can track movement. We talked about the crediting strategies where they use that to capture the movement. And then the last piece of that is the rates and the crediting opportunity associated with that. So the insurance carriers can mitigate their costs against the policyholder's earning potential by utilizing rates. And the rates are applied to the crediting strategies in order to calculate realized interest earnings. So examples of crediting rates include caps, spreads, participation rates, right? Caps are the ceiling, spreads are the floor. Participation rate is exactly that. It's the percentage in which the contract will participate in the raw index earnings. And I'm going to show you some examples of these on the next slide here. So, all right, so here we've got a 1 year point to point, right? So we have our three components. We've got our index. So right here, we're using the S&P 500. Second thing is our crediting strategy, right? So we've got a 1 year point to point. And the last thing is our rate, right down here, an annual cap of 3.25%. Okay, I'm going to show you how this works. So let's look at this chart right here. So this is the S&P 500 over the course of 1 year, right? We have a 1 year point-to-point strategy. So our buy-in date, our initial index value at the time that the policy was issued, the S&P value was 1,245. Okay. Fast forward 1 year to point B of the annual point-to-point period. Now we're ready for to earn interest, right? To get the interest credited. So the first thing the insurance carrier is going to do is they're going to look at what the market has changed to. In this case, it grew from 1245 to 1360. Okay. What they're going to do then is they're going to apply a formula to calculate what that changes in a percentage. So that's right here. So they apply this formula and they come up with 9.24%. What that means is the value of 1245 grew 9.24% to 1360. Okay, everybody follow me so far? So now that we know what the percentage change is, now we have to apply the cap. And the cap in this case is 3.25%. So obviously 9.24 is higher than 3.25, so we've capped out. The ceiling is 3.25, so the credit for the year is going to be 3.25%. Okay, Now, one thing I want to address before we move on from this slide is I don't get very excited about 3.25%. And I imagine that everybody is probably thinking the same exact thing, right? I'm not getting excited about but I can get more than that in my money market right now, as a matter of fact. This slide is nothing more than just to show you how this works, okay? Right now, caps are with directly into the S&P are I've seen as high as 10, 11, 12%. Okay, so there's a lot more opportunity in a capped strategy right now than what this example is showing. One other thing I want to point out too is that, in my personal opinion, and people can disagree with me, but my personal opinion, I think caps are antiquated. I don't want to work with caps. Why would I cap off my opportunity when there's other crediting strategies out there with rates that literally won't limit my upside potential? They'll give me unlimited upside potential. So I kind of stay away from caps personally. But let's take a look at another example here where we can not use a cap, okay? So once again, this is a 1-year point-to-point. All right, and we're using a basket here. So this is one of those multi-asset strategies. So it's using a basket of different credit markets here. So once again, we have our starting value at 141. We have our ending value at 153. We put that in a interest or percentage earnings, okay? And that's an 8.51% growth rate over the course of the year. In this example, we've got a par rate of 50%. Okay, so we apply, and the participation rate is the percentage in which our crediting participates with the raw returns of the index, the 8.51%. So we participate in 50% of that. So we get 4.26 credited to our account for that year. Once again, not super excited about 4.26, right? This 50% participation rate, just to give you an idea of where par rates are right now, we've got them as high as 350%. Okay, so once again, just an example, not really too, realistic for the environment we're in right now. All right, so why do we sell FIAs? We sell FIAs because we can give our clients the opportunity to earn interest using innovative crediting strategies without the fear of loss due to market risk. That's the difference, okay? They're unique in the sense that they allow policyholders to lock in their gains and sit out the losses. So I know you guys all heard the phrase, zero is your hero, right? Let me show you how that actually works, okay? So this chart, we're showing an individual who purchased a FIA for $100,000 in 1998, okay? The blue line shows the growth according to the contractual minimum guarantee, which in this case is 1% per year, right? We always have to have our minimum guarantee because an annuity is a contract. The green line shows the growth of the monthly average crediting strategy, which tracks the performance of the S&P 500. The yellow line is the actual real numbers of the S&P 500. Okay, so we've got our so you can see, let's see, you can see the S&P's value drops tremendously from 1998 to 2000. I'm sorry, it grows from 98 to 2000, right? So in this case, it starts at $100,000. The S&P 500 value goes up to 137, okay? And then it drops tremendously over 2 years from 137 to 77,000, okay? The FIA participates in those earnings and grows from 100,000 to about 125,000. But then look what happens from 2000 to 2002. The S&P tanks, drops from 137 to 77. We stay at our $125,000. We don't participate in those down years. So this is where our 0% growth rate is our hero. And look how long it takes for the S&P to recover. It never really does. It never really does recover, does it? So you can see, sorry, excuse me, as we continue to move on here, the S&P participates in the upward movement of, the annuity participates in the upward movement of the S&P 500, sits out the down years, and continues to grow. That's the power behind the fixed index annuities, folks, is that we can give our folks the ability to participate in these indexes, earn double-digit potential, and not ever have to worry about losing money because Joe Biden makes a bad decision. Okay? All right. So, what makes income planning possible? What makes any type of planning possible, really? Preparing for any future scenario, whether it's known or unknown, requires more and more contingencies with every assumption we have to make. So, how can you call a plan when it's based on ballpark figures and guesswork? The beauty behind annuities for income planning is that they produce predictable income, which is guaranteed. So, do you think your clients would respond if you could tell them exactly what their retirement income will be, guaranteed to the penny, years into the future? And annuities will give you that power. There's no other financial instrument which can make these same claims. There's two ways in which annuities can produce income. The more traditional method, which is annuitization, we talked about that a little bit, and the second is income riders, okay? Annuitization is a feature which is automatically built into every annuity contract. And remember, the Latin origin for the word annuity means annual stipend. For deferred products, different annuities will offer different annuitization terms. For example, a 1/10 means you can defer the contract for 1 year. And what I mean by that is the annuity is growing based on your crediting strategy. It's in deferral. And then you could annuitize for a minimum of 10 years. So 1/10, we defer for 1 year, 10 years, we have the minimum of 10-year payout, okay? So, and what'll happen is the annuitization value at the end of year one will be paid out in equal installments over the 10-year period. Essentially, then this is what I want you guys to keep in memory. This is a real easy way to remember it, is annuitization turns the asset, the annuity value, into a guaranteed income stream, okay? There are also immediate annuities which have little to no deferral component. These are specifically designed to pay out income immediately according to the settlement option selected by the policyholder. So let's take a look at a SPIA, okay? Here's a single premium annuity. Here you can see the policyholder is a 65-year-old male in Arizona, okay? He paid $250,000 into this policy. And you can see here that it pays out for life only, right here, lifetime only, right? So he puts his $250 in there, and this thing is going to pay out $1,472.40 every month as long as he's alive. Very, very simple. All right, so the second way to use deferred annuities for income is by utilizing income riders, okay? This is by far more preferable to annuitization for several reasons. Much like annuitization, income riders can provide an income stream which is guaranteed for the life of the policyholder. But in contrast to annuitization, the income riders do not sacrifice the loss of many features, benefits, and growth associated with the base annuity by turning the asset into income. Instead, they offer much more flexibility and control to the policyholder by generating lifetime income without disturbing the base annuity. In other words, income riders pay guaranteed income out of the base annuity while keeping it intact, whereas annuitization turns the base annuity into an irrevocable income stream. So generally, income riders are an optional paid-for feature which is elected by the policyholder at the time of application. While there are free income riders available, the charges associated with the optional income riders typically range from 50 to 150 basis points. Income riders create a secondary hypothetical account, commonly referred to as the income account value or the benefit base. Okay. This value is separate from the contract value, which is where the real annuity dollars are. We put our premium in there, and the contract value represents that money. The income account value is made up. I'm sorry. The value, this value, the income account value, is separate from the contract value, which is where the dollars are, and it's used solely for the purpose of calculating future income. That's it, just to calculate what the income payments are going to be. The income account value is made up of the policy premium, again, hypothetical, okay? And it's going to include, and any applicable bonuses. Sometimes we'll have bonuses on those. And generally, they'll also include some sort of a growth component. So income riders have two phases. They'll have a deferral phase and a payout phase. The deferral phase, we usually apply some sort of crediting or fixed interest rate for a period of time. It's oftentimes referred to as the roll-up rate. The policyholder can elect to begin the payout phase at some point in the future in order to receive lifetime income payments. The lifetime income payments are derived from a payout percentage and applied to the income account value at the time of election. Okay, the payout percentage is defined by the insurance carrier, which is usually based on the policyholder's attained age. All right, I'm going to put this all together. I know it was a lot of information, but let me show you how this works. Okay, so in this example, we've got a 60-year-old client with $100,000. Okay, and he wants to defer for 5 years to age 65. The product illustrated has an immediate premium bonus of 25%. So we put our 100 grand in there, we get the 25% bonus. Now keep in mind, this is the income account value. So this is hypothetical money. Your guy didn't make $25,000 overnight. This is just to determine what our income payment's going to be. Okay. So right off the bat, my income account value is $125,000. Right. This product also has an annual roll-up rate of 10% simple interest. So 10% simple interest is based off our initial premium, $100,000, 10% is $10,000. So we get our $125 day one, and then we grow at $10,000 every year, as long as we leave the product in deferral, the income rider in deferral, okay? Now this guy is elected in year 5 at age 65. He wants to retire, and he wants to start pulling out income to retire off of, okay? So his 100 grand has grown to $175,000, right? So remember, we need to apply the withdrawal percentage that's defined by the carrier based on the client's attained age. So that's this column right here. Not all the carriers actually define this on the illustration like this one does. That's why I use this one, so you can really walk through the math easily. So, and this is contractual, this is guaranteed, and this is determined by the insurance carrier. So they say if you're 65, you get 5.05% of whatever your income base is. So we apply 5.05% to 175, and that's going to be $8,838 paid out annually as long as this guy is living. Make sense? Okay. Now, one thing I want to point out, guys, is once again, I hear $8,838 on an annual basis, and I don't get too super excited over that. But let me put this in different terms for you, okay? We put $100,000 in this thing. $8,838. That represents an income stream off our initial premium of $100,000 of 8.8%. Think about that for a second. We're guaranteeing an 8.8% income stream from your initial premium over your lifetime. Now, I'll oftentimes mention to folks at this stage, have you ever heard of the 4% rule, right? David Ramsey and all those super smart talking heads on the internet talk about the 4% rule, which means As long as you never withdraw more than 4% of your investable accounts, you'll never run out of money. And as a matter of fact, they're actually kind of going back on that right now. They're actually kind of saying, oh, maybe we need to actually look at more like 3%. The 4% rule is turning more into 3%. I'm actually doubling that right here, more than doubling that, by giving you an 8.8% guaranteed income stream, and you never have to worry about running out of money anyway. This is really powerful, folks. If you present it that way, it will resonate with people. All right. So,
hey, Chris, sorry, just to, if you can go back to that, just so that I can wrap my head around it. Obviously, you can see from a chart standpoint, the longer you let it bake, that the higher the return is, right?
Yes, sir.
If you want to tell a client this, you would, in theory, then net out and say, look, you may pay 50 basis points, 100 basis points for this rider. That's not reflected there. Correct?
No, right. This is just the income account, right? So we're not talking about their real money. And 2 points. So yes, what's really great about this is that it's all contractual. It's all defined inside the contract. So in this case, we're showing that the client said, I wanted to retire at 65, right? And this is your payment's going to be $8,838. Well, we're showing it all the way out to age 94 at this point. So we can say, okay, yeah, if you don't want to retire at 65, or you're not sure when you want to retire, or things change, you want to retire early, this is what your guaranteed payout is going to be for whatever time you decide you want to retire. You can literally show it out for them as long as you want. So great point there. And so on the next slide, I'm going to put it all together. I'll show you how the real money interacts with the hypothetical income account value. Okay, that answer your question? Okay, cool. All right. So this is the same exact case. This is the 65-year-old that's receiving $8,838 per year, right? So here he is. He's 65. He's receiving $8,838 per year. Okay. Once again, we still have the initial premium of $100,000. Okay. And you can see right up here the accumulated account value. This is my $100,000 that I initially put in there. Why we see $98,750? I thought you said, Chris, you could never lose money in this thing. That's the rider charge Brad was just talking about. Okay, the rider charge hits right there in year one. Okay, now in this example, we're going to see how the base annuity interacts with the income rider, both during the deferral and the payout phase. So the accumulated value right here in the blue box is growing at a hypothetical rate of 9.1%. I don't believe it's actually, it's not listed on this, but that's what the actual growth percentage, and it's based on the most recent historical returns. So basically, this is what it would look like had you have taken this out 10 years ago, the day that I ran this. That's really what this thing is. So the illustrated return is 9.1%. And now that is actually, it's a 2-year strategy, so it's crediting every other year. So that's why we see this dip right here, because we had the rider charge come out and we didn't get a credit because it's a 2-year strategy. It hits every other year. And you can see that right here. Here's the assumed interest rate return. You can see 0, 0, 0, 0. It's an every other year crediting strategy. Okay. All right. So you can see it starts at $98,750 in year one, and it grows to $179,443 in year 5. The accumulated value drops to $168,944 in year 6 because we started receiving the income rider payments of $8,838. You see that? So my account value is this. I take that out in a free withdrawal. It drops to this. Okay. Now keep in mind, that's a 0 year. We didn't get a credit that year. So look what happens in the next year. I pull out my $8,838 and I get my interest credit, and it actually grows. It continues to grow. It went from $179. I pulled out $17,000 and it grew to $182. Let's see here. So it grew over $14,000, and that's the advantage to having the benefit base still working for you while the income rider is paying out, is that this is still exposed to the crediting strategies, and it still can grow even though look at this, it continues to grow pretty much over the entire life of the contract, even though we're pulling out the 8838 every year. See that? Pretty amazing, right? So one thing I want to point out to you, here's the slam dunk for you guys, okay? What I like to do is show this page and say, all right, let's say life expectancy is 85. Okay, so here's 85, right? Now, by 85, I've pulled out the $8,800 on an annual basis for 20 years, okay? And that totals, here's the cumulative payouts. So that is a total of $185,000 that I've pulled out with my my income rider over the course of the past 20 years. Now look at this though. My accumulated account value is my death benefit. Same thing. So I still have $568,000 in this account. Guys, I put 100 grand in this thing. I pulled out $185,000 over 20 years, and I've still got $568,000 completely liquid cash sitting in the account. That's something you think your clients would respond to, folks. Okay? That's the power with this thing. That's a total benefit of over $750,000 from putting 100 grand in this thing. All right.
Hey, Chris, we got a question from Nate.
Yep.
Chris, when you say if you go back to the annual assumed interest rate, now are you saying that when you say assume, are you basing that on the average performance, and you're saying that that's how it's going to perform? I'm trying to understand why would we tell a client that we're assuming that it's going to perform at that interest rate? Are you basing it on past performance, or can you kind of break that down to me?
Yeah, I sure can. So this is illustrating at an annualized average return of 9.1%. Okay. The way that they got that return, and these are the real market numbers. This is if you would have taken this policy out 10 years ago today, these are the actual market numbers based on the crediting strategies that we've illustrated inside the contract. A couple assumptions it makes on top of that is that the rates never changed, over the life of the contract. So you can't go in there and I'll caution you, don't go in there and say, yes, this is what it's going to do. I'll tell you right now, it's absolutely not going to do this, because it's never going to do the same exact thing 10 years again, right? So this is a hypothetical that's based off real actual numbers to show how these things actually work, okay? When they look at the historical returns on these things, Nate, just to give you a little more information, there's about 254 trading days per year. And what I mean by that is the S&P, the Dow Jones, Wall Street is open and trading 254 days per year. Okay. Now, since we're tracking those markets, we have 250 some odd possible point A starting dates, right, over the course of a year. So what they do is they take the current crediting strategy with the current rate, and they apply it to a buy-in date of all 100 and 256 possible buy-in dates per year. And then they run that back as far as we have the data. So in some cases, even into the 60s. And then they look at they average it all out and look at what was the best 10-year period, what was the worst 10-year, what was the most recent, and what was the average. And that's what they use when they come up with these numbers.
I follow you. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. All right. Okay, guys. So we covered a lot today. We covered the protections and benefits of contractual guarantees associated with annuities. We took a look at the earning potential behind them, the crediting strategies, and the compound interest derived from tax deferral. We talked about the power of safety from market volatility, locking in our gains and sitting out our losses. And we saw firsthand how annuity income riders can provide an income stream which is efficient, predictable, and guaranteed for life. So I hope the information we covered today provides a great foundation for us to build on. Once again, I want to remind you to join us again next week for part 2, okay? What we're going to do is we're going to take all the information we learned today and we're going to apply that to how these things actually work in the real world marketplace scenario, so you understand how to apply these to your clients. I saw there were some more questions too.
Go ahead, Mr. Campbell.
Chris, first of all, great presentation. I appreciate you, man. I really do. I want a little bit more information on the par rate. You know, and I've written a few of the peak 10s, as you know, and the par rate is over 200, 300%. Can you talk to me just a little bit how that actually works?
Are you in terms of how the carrier can offer that, or in terms of how it actually applies to the policy?
How it applies to the policy.
Okay. Let's see. Let's go back to my example. Let's see here. All right, here we go. Okay. So, the par rate is going to be defined by the insurance carrier at the time of policy issue. Okay. We know what they are right now, right? Because they come up with their rates, and their rates are what they are, but they reset, they change all the time. And so they will be defined in the contract. So right now, and I know this is not your question, but I want to give you a little background. Right now, the rate environment we're in is so competitive. And also with the advent of these multi-index strategies, and a lot of these folks are starting to use two-year products now. The pricing for the crediting strategies has gone way down, and so that's given insurance carriers a lot more room to really beef up these participation rates. So we are seeing participation rates averaging anywhere between 100 to as high as 300, 350. And it's going to depend on the carrier, it's going to depend on the index, and it's also going to depend on the reset period. You're not going to see a 350% par rate on a 1-year reset, for example. You'll see that on a 2-year, but not a 1-year, okay? So the carrier will define what the participation rate is at the time of policy issue. Let's take the same exact scenario, and let's just say that the par rate is 200% rather than 50, okay? So we've got our 141. That grows to 153. We put that in a percentage change by using this formula here, and that's at 8.51%. Okay. If my par rate is 200%, I take 200% of 8.51. So 8.51 times 200%, that's 17.02%. That's what my earnings are for the year.
Thank you, man. You made that so simple.
Lots of practice. All right, that makes sense?
Yes, thank you. I feel better about that now. Okay.
Cool. Any other questions, folks? Okay. All right, so on the screen here, I've got the phone number and email address for the wonderful folks over at Iscential. I assume all that goes to Brad. Maybe not.
It doesn't, but we'll get it there, Chris.
All right.
Hey, just a couple of things for everybody on the call. One is, first of all, Chris, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Look, there's a reason why we partnered with Chris, right? And we've had these conversations. And if anybody on this call, or if you share this with anybody, look, we understand if you don't know annuities, it can be intimidating, right? So we are trying to break this down into, let's learn the product. And then the next webinar is really going to be, where do you go find clients that are going to have the potential for this, right? So stick with this. You got to give this a try. It's very similar to life insurance. If you're agreeing to life insurance and it was intimidating and I don't want to ask a client, we're going to try to give you the right word tracks to be able to say, how do I actually go after this from that standpoint? The other thing too is, if you want to participate in annuities on the platform, it's a little different process. Derek, I think you're a great testimonial of somebody that is fantastic in life. And we've been talking, Justin and I've been hounding you about annuities, and you realized what the market's doing. And now you have a significant annuity interest. So if anybody has an interest in what the platform and how it really looks and how it could fit into your agency or for you individually, please contact Justin or myself, and we can walk you through what that looks like too. JV, anything I forgot?
No, you nailed it. Chris, we really appreciate your time, and looking forward to seeing everybody next week.
Yeah, thanks so much, guys. Really appreciate it. And hey, any questions that pop up over the course of the week, get them over to Justin or Brad. They'll get a hold of me, and we'll make sure we get them answered for you, okay?
Yeah, good call.
Sounds good.
All right,
Awesome.
guys. Have a great week.
All right, have a great day, guys. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.